The thing that's keeping you broke probably isn't what you think it is. Most of us believe that the problem is external. If I just made more money, then all my problems would be solved. And you know what? You're not wrong. But I learned the hard way that that's not always the entire picture. Because not even 5 years ago, I was buried in over $120,000 of student loan debt, and I had a compulsive shopping problem that was keeping me stuck and broke. Every day I told myself I should get better with money, that I knew better, but nothing really ever moved the needle for me until I realized it wasn't necessarily my income that was the problem, but it had so much more to do with my toxic money habits. So in today's video, I want to share with you the 10 toxic money habits that are keeping you broke and what to do about it instead. So let's start with the first toxic money habit that ended up costing me thousands over the years, and it's a big reason why money can feel so tight. But it's such an easy mindset shift to fix that I wish I realized it sooner. And that was paying myself last. When it comes to money, sometimes feeling broke isn't necessarily an income problem, but it's simply an order of operations problem. Most people, including myself for years, kind of play it this way. Once your paycheck hits your bank account and after taxes and deductions, you end up paying rent or mortgage, your electricity bills, your credit card bill, and then whatever's left over, that's what you tell yourself you're gonna save. But then the weekend comes. It's time for some silly little treats. It's time to go out and have brunch, or your friend invites you to a last-minute concert. And before you know it, the money that you told yourself you were gonna save or invest is long gone. So yeah, no wonder it feels impossible to save, because there's never any money left over after payday. And I did that for years too, until I just made this one simple shift, and that was simply paying myself first. So once that money lands in your bank account, all you really have to do is set some money aside first into savings or investments. Usually it's around 10 to 20% of your income, and then you do whatever you need to do with the rest. But do what you can. Start with $25, $50, $100. Something is always better than nothing. And I actually set up my bank so that it's automated, so I don't even have to think about it. And what this does over time is it just simply gets you used to not having that money at all. But in the background, at least you're building up your savings, there's something going into investments, and you're basically doing it on autopilot. This way, there is zero mental gymnastics involved, and you just let automation take care of it for you. The next bad money habit I didn't even realize I was doing until I caught myself saying things like, well, as soon as I make 100K, then all my problems will be solved. Or, okay, well, I get 3 paychecks this month, so this is the time I'm finally going to start saving. But do you see the problem here? I was basically waiting for some future version of my life to fix everything that I was going through now. I call this when-centric thinking. I think a lot of us find ourselves doing this, but it actually plays a huge role in making you feel stuck, because all it does is it keeps delaying taking any action. It basically convinces you that life is just going to magically somehow get better later. So it kind of takes you off the hook of making those small but kind of scary changes that are going to move the needle now. And I think the huge problem with this too is when you do start making more money, then what are you going to do? I don't know what made me so delusional in thinking that once I made 100K, I would know what to do with it and I was going to be responsible with it. If anything, if you don't have a good relationship or system with your money now, then making more of it, I think, is simply just going to amplify any money problems that you have later. Think about all those stories that you hear about lottery winners who end up going broke. It's because they didn't develop the skill of having money once they got it. So instead of waiting for the perfect time to start understanding your finances, just start now. This might mean building simple habits like reviewing your spending weekly, automating your savings, or by doing things like delaying purchases instead of buying right when you see it. If you build your foundation now, by the time the money does come, you're going to be ready. The next toxic money habit I feel like flies under the radar and keeps so many of us more stuck than I think we need to be, and that is just simply keeping up. I feel like there's a huge amount of pressure, especially when you start your career and start making more money than you've probably ever seen in your life before, to keep up, to live up to the income that you're making. So you might feel like you suddenly need to upgrade your car or get a better wardrobe or even upgrade your apartment and stop living with roommates. And then you see the highlight reels on social media. You see people taking all these amazing trips, they're buying designer bags on a weekend, and the more you see it, the more normalized it gets. And that's where you can slowly start to feel like, well, if they can do it, then I should be doing that too. But the problem with that is if you keep spending every time your income goes up, then you're going to stay in the same place financially. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have nice things or that you shouldn't upgrade your lifestyle, but I think it needs to happen slowly. So yeah, buy the designer bag if you want it, but make sure that you're also saving and investing alongside it. Or yeah, upgrade your apartment when you start making more money. But I think at the same time, what a lot of people forget to do is to also upgrade their savings along with their lifestyle. I think you can still live well today, but make sure that you're creating your safety net for future you too. The next habit that's keeping you broke is that you're running your money on vibes alone. You have no money system. And I only say this because that was me too. I never tracked any of my spending. I always just kind of knew where my money was going, and I definitely didn't have a plan. Which basically meant that every bill or even every regular expense that I knew was coming felt stressful. It's basically like living in a state of financial damage control all the time, and it is not fun. So if you don't have a system to help run your money and understand it, then your money's gonna end up running you. So building small but regular habits to build into my money system, like budgeting every single month, having separate bank accounts so I could track things like savings goals, investments, and even fund money, it really just helps stop you from financially winging it all the time. And if you're self-employed like me or running a business, that can get even more complicated, which is where I'd like to thank the sponsor of this part of the video, Relay. When you run a small business or you're freelance, you can have money coming in from all over the place. You have different streams of income, you have to worry about taxes, contractors, payroll, and if you have no structure holding that together, then that's when it can start to get really overwhelming. Relay is a business banking platform designed to help small business owners get crystal clear on their money. When I first started my side hustle of content creation and opened my first business banking account, I had no idea what I was doing. For that first year, I basically just dumped everything into one account and hoped that I would figure it out later. It got really messy, especially around tax time. So I would have loved to have a tool like Relay to make things easier from the start. You can open up to 20 checking accounts to separate things like payroll, taxes, freelancer payments, or recurring expenses, and you can even automate savings and transfers to stay organized without overthinking, all with no hidden or minimum fees that can easily tie up your cash flow. And you can even automate your savings so that it happens on autopilot. We love to see it. So if your current money system has been winging it, then I think Relay is a solid option to check out if you're a small business owner. And I just want to say thank you to Relay for sponsoring this part of the video. When you use my link below to get started, you're getting access to a genuinely useful service, but you're also helping support my channel so I can keep making content here for free on YouTube. So I just want to say thanks for your support. For this next one, I'm probably gonna have to hold your hand when I say this. But when I realized the truth about this next toxic money habit, it pretty much changed everything for me. And it's that you buy your emotions. The hard truth of it is that, especially if you feel like you have a problem with overspending, every time you scroll on Amazon, add that thing to cart, or buy that new skincare product, you're not really buying the thing. You're buying what you want to feel. You might want to feel productive, you might want to feel confident, you might want to feel better about yourself, or it can be something as simple as not wanting to be bored. Because when I look back on all the dumb shit that I spent money on, especially in my shopaholic days, pretty much none of it was about the stuff. I was trying to buy things like status, control, belonging, self-esteem, and validation. Or I was trying to buy those things to relieve boredom, stress, and anxiety. And it eventually got to the point where I could barely sit with any of my feelings without opening up my wallet. And that's the problem. Because when you start using things like shopping as a way to self-soothe or even unwind after a hard day, then you start to train your brain to treat spending like a coping mechanism. It basically becomes a way that you avoid your feelings instead of, feeling them. And don't get me wrong, because I definitely don't think that all shopping is bad. You're allowed to want things and buy things. But I think simply checking in with your emotional state before you do is going to save you so much money in the long run. Answering the simple question of what do I feel right now and why is going to be so huge in helping delay or prevent that overspending. Have you ever told yourself, oh, I should save more money? Or, yeah, I should probably stop shopping. But then nothing really happens? I've been there too, and it's because you're missing this. You don't have a clear goal. Saying things like you want to save more or you want to shop less is great and all, but if anything, it's not really a goal. That's more like a guilt trip. I think when it comes to your money, because it's so heavily reliant on habit change and mindset, you need something bigger. You need something bigger that's gonna help you get started and that's gonna help you keep going, especially when it gets tempting and tough. Like, if you don't know what you're saving for, then making all these sacrifices and cutting back, it's just gonna make it a lot harder to do. So I really think some higher stakes need to be involved. And to figure out what those are, you kind of have to dig deeper. Like, I think back to my Shopaholic days. When I hit rock bottom, I bought a pair of boots that cost more than my rent at the time, and I fully knew I couldn't afford them. But instead of returning them like I could have, I kept them anyway. It was just kind of like a conscious moment of self-sabotage that I felt so deeply in my core, and I never wanted to feel like that again. That was the moment that I knew I had to change. It got me looking at my bank account. I wanted to see exactly how much I was spending on stupid shit that I didn't need. And it got me laser focused in paying off my debt because I wanted my money to be my own. I never wanted to feel that out of control of my money again. And I really started to think deeply about what I could do when that money was mine. So think about it. If you have a savings goal, or even if you want to pay off debt, what can you do with that money? Can you go on your dream vacation without having to worry about how you're going to pay for it later? Or maybe you can go part-time or even fully quit your job to pursue your passion. Or maybe it's something as simple as taking your friends out to dinner and covering the bill because you want to. When your goal feels clear and personal, then it gives all of these habits that you're building and breaking a purpose. Doing things like cutting down your lifestyle or hustling harder to increase your income all becomes worth it because you know what you're doing it for. So make sure you have a goal to help make those habits stick. This next toxic money habit feels a bit sneaky because it sounds funny and fun and relatable, but I realized it's quietly keeping you stuck. And that's normalizing your own financial BS. Like, basically making a joke out of it. Like, oh, tee-hee, I'm broke. Oh, tee-hee, I better marry a rich man. Girl math win because it was on sale, so I basically made money. No. I hate to be a Debbie Downer, but making a joke of your financial situation, especially if you are struggling, is not cute. And I know this because I did this all the time. I love self-deprecating humor, but what I realized I was doing is basically I was using it as a way to shield myself from facing the actual consequences of my actions. Like, if I could use humor and relatability as a defense mechanism, then I wouldn't have to face or admit how out of control I actually felt. And I'm all about using humor to deal with things, but I think the more you create a joke of it and normalize it, the less of a pressure there is to actually do anything about it to change. So instead of trying to laugh it off, I think it's important to be honest with yourself instead. And you don't need to feel guilty about it either, but it's important to stop making cutesy excuses for habits that are stealing from your future, quite frankly. Like, shopping is not cardio, okay? So I think one of the fastest ways to fail at getting your financial life together is to go full tilt to an extreme. Like, we've all had days where we look at our credit card bill where you're like, that's it, okay, no more spending, I'm going on a low buy for the rest of the year. And that's great. And maybe you do really well for a couple of days, and then all of a sudden you have a hard day at work and you're right straight back into a spending spiral. And now not only are you over budget, but you feel ashamed, you feel guilty, discouraged, and pretty much doomed to fail. So basically the exact same pattern as a yo-yo diet. Now, don't get me wrong here, because I think no-buy challenges are actually useful. I've done them myself in the past. I even wrote a journal all about it. I think they are a great tool to give yourself a bit of a reset or even a dopamine detox. But for some of us, it really can be too extreme and really caters to all or none thinking, which I think for most of us, even though we try, can turn into a whole lot of nothing. And if you're in that boat too, and you're really struggling with that all or none, I think it's a lot better to focus on the small but consistent and imperfect changes that you can make over time. For example, if you eat takeout every night and you want to cut down for money and health reasons, maybe at first you minimize it to 3 times a week, then weekends only, then once a month. That way you gradually build the habit over time of doing without it, and you build up a habit of meal prepping and cooking at home. But if you go cold turkey all in, you might just find yourself ordering DoorDash again that same night. And I think you can apply this framework to any part of your spending and basically any habit you're trying to build or break. Start with saving $10 a week, then 25, then 50, or try a low buy challenge instead of a no buy. Do whatever helps you build consistent progress without swinging between extremes. Next is thinking that punishment is going to be enough to fix you. The day I realized I was broke, like really broke, was the day I also realized that it was entirely because of me. And it did not feel good. I was ashamed. I was embarrassed. I was really pissed at myself. And I'm not gonna lie, I used that. I used that anger and frustration and embarrassment to help me write my first budget, to declutter my life, and to really help me get started in making progress in changing it. So, yeah, I loved using shame to kickstart my journey, but in the long run, it's not what was going to sustain it. Because the problem with shaming yourself is that it doesn't build self trust or self confidence. And the more you punish yourself to make these changes, I think the more likely you are to actually spiral out and rebel. And then that shame spiral starts all over again. So if you do have some bad money habits that you want to break, then yeah, feel that shame and acknowledge it and even use it to get started. But it's not what's going to help you keep going. The changes you're trying to make are hard, and doubling down on that harshness isn't going to help you get any better. As woo-woo as it sounds, being kind to yourself is kind of where it's at. But even having the kindest rules won't stick if you still believe this one thing about yourself. And that's the idea that you're bad with money. I used to say this all the time. I'm a spender. I've always been bad with money. I'm a shopaholic. Tee-hee, it's just what I do. Leaning back on this identity becomes your excuse. Because every time you feel like you mess up with money or that you overspend, then you can just simply go back and say, well, I'm a spender. That's who I am. That's just what I do. Oopsie. As long as you have these beliefs about yourself, then you're gonna act that way. So all of these habits, whether you want to build them or break them, it really comes back down to identity. So instead of trying to just rely on willpower and discipline to change, I think it's important to start asking different questions. Like, what would somebody who's good with money do? Do they buy things on impulse, or do they put it on a wish list and make a plan to buy it? Do they save for a rainy day? Do they pay themselves first? Do they spend a little bit more on the things they value? If you want to change anything about yourself, you basically need to work backwards. Start with the vision of the person you want to be in mind, and basically work backwards from there. Once you start acting like them, you eventually become them. So now you know the 10 toxic money habits that keep people broke. And if you want to up your money game even more without trying harder, these are the 15 tiny habits that can help you stop overspending for good. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.